I'm Dave Rover. Tonight you will see something otherworldly. You will see something that people often believe and fall into religious fanatic cults, and then they go into these weird fucking sex rings and shit. I'm telling you that this shit is not something you want children to be around for, okay? Do you understand? Because if I catch any of your children watching this, you will be sentenced to hell. And now, I just want to make it clear that if you don't fucking get your kids out of this fucking room right now, especially in this film production as it plays in your living room, you're gonna go straight to the bottom pits of hell. You understand? Okay. Now, I tell you, this movie is gonna rock your socks off.
Hello. Hi. Alright. I figured that we just get straight to the point today. I don't really want to pussyfoot around it. So, on this channel I've used the word misotheism a number of times. I have talked about what that is, what it means to me, but I've never really spoke about it in terms of something to be understood. So let's just get a few things out of the way. So misotheism is a term that can be broken down. If you want to try to understand what that word means, it's a simple breaking down of the term misotheism. So when we think of miso, which is the first part, it's a hatred, right? So when you think of misotheism, or when you think of miso something, there's misogyny, there's a hatred of women, right? Misandry, there's all different kinds of ways that we can label a hatred of something using the word miso. And theism is, theism. It's a general belief in God, or it's something pertaining or in relation to the belief in God. For example, atheism, being meaning it's an anti, it's a negative there. It's the lack of a belief in God, right? So, or asocial, you're lacking the ability to be social, or you just, you know what I mean? So when we have these two words together, we have what we can understand to be a hatred of God. Now, why am I a misotheist? Well, misotheism pretty much stems from my anarchist views, which I'll get into that a little bit later. I would like to read you a poem really quick though, and I'm going to pull that up right now. That's why you hear me typing, but I'm gonna read this poem to you because it kind of stands out to me. Okay, it's an excerpt, by the way, so it's not like a whole thing, but it is from Epicurus, if you're interested. Epicurus being spelled Epicurus. Epicurus. So Epicurus has this to say: is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Then he is not omnipotent. Is he able but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil? Is he neither able nor willing? Then why call him God? So it's in every scenario where we have a ruler over our entire world, our entire universe, this person supposedly makes every attempt to manifest himself as someone to be worshipped, because we should be grateful for him creating us, right? This is not necessarily a belief system, but it's an attitude. more so than a belief system. To be a misotheist, you don't need to believe in any specific, doctrine whatsoever. Even what I just read, you don't necessarily need to believe it. You also don't necessarily need to read any specific books. I know I read Epicurus just now, but, fuck dogma, really, truly. And I think also what's important here is understanding what God means in our culture. And God represents a lot of things to a lot of different people. And I just want to say right off the bat, if you are religious in any way, shape, or form, I don't have any animosity towards you. And I would imagine most misotheists don't also have the same animosity that you may experience from atheists. However, I would argue that a lot of us, if not most of us, are atheists. If not, we are at least somewhat agnostic. So, the reason why I'm bringing up atheism and agnosticism into this is because truly, if you hate God, which a lot of people, especially like Christian fundamentalists, will try to use as some kind of checkmate. Checkmate, you do believe in God. Well, this is something that I have not even really seen atheists address, which is interesting. And that is, if God were to be real, right? Because first of all, we have no reason to believe there is a God. There's no scientific material evidence to prove that such a God exists, right? So that's the atheist argument, and I think it holds quite well, especially in contemporary times. And then there's the agnostic point, right? That, I have no reason to believe that there is a God. I don't know if there is a God, right? I cannot prove to you, especially on here, that there is no God, right? The belief in a God comes from the person making the claim that there is a God. The burden of proof is on the person making the supernatural claim. So I can't tell you whether or not there is a God or not. I can tell you if I believe in God, but I can't tell you that there is a God. No one can really tell you that there is a God. If they're telling you that there is a God, then they're either vulnerable to some religious cult, or they are the ones pulling the strings within the hierarchy of that religious cult. But let's go further than that, because I don't think atheists even dare to ask this question, right? And this is a question I think people need to often ask. If God does exist, do you worship the God? Now, a lot of atheists will probably say, well, God in the Bible, and I'm referring to the Christian God. I don't speak for other gods because I was raised a Catholic, and that is the God that I am most intimately familiar with. I'm not speaking on anyone else here. You can apply this to yourself if you want to, if you follow a different denomination of any kind of religion. But anyway, but a lot of atheists will say that there are several instances where God is evil, or God has displayed evil, or hatred, or misogyny, or rape, or genocide. And to all of that, that is true. And they can even make the claim that this God that exists in the Bible, and the lore of the Bible, is not justified. But will you worship him, right? That's where a lot of atheists get this really weird kind of pause, right? Because on one hand, you'd be in a position where if this God were to be, the exact person that is depicted in the Bible, just to entertain the argument for a second, you'd be in a position where you'd be fucked. Literally fucked. It's you and your mortal self against, what, this fucking giant fucking deity or whatever? Sure, okay. I can understand some atheists being scared to confront this person. And to be fair, I would be too. But I think even further, what makes, especially my form of atheism, more so misotheism, is that I wouldn't fucking submit to such a God. I would be so fucking outraged that the lore of Christian fundamentalists and people with religious fucking, plutocratic money laundering power are able to stand behind a fucking God that is so unjust. I'd be willing to go to hell for that. I'd be more than willing to go to hell. Now, of course, we have to understand as well that the threat of so-called hell is more so to be used as a threat to get people more in line with said religion. So if you say, if you don't believe in God, you're going to go to hell or something like that, then that person, depending on who it is, whether they're a child or traumatized or mentally ill or hungry or whatever, which is usually the people that Christians tend to prey on anyway, then they're more likely to believe that, and they're more likely to submit to this religious order. And that's really it, my friend. Is that, of course, God doesn't materially exist as it does in the Bible. But God, what he represents in our world, is might. And he does represent all the terrible things that we deal with in our lifetime. He is everything that is manifested to be awful in our world. That is, if you do believe in such a God. Now, again, I don't need you to believe in misotheism or whatever. I don't need you to follow a cult or whatever like that. What I do need you to do, well, I don't really even need you to do anything, to be honest with you. I would like if you could help me in my GoFundMe in the link below, but that's not really what I need. Well, no, I do need that. Can't talk straight. That's not what I'm trying to say. The conclusion that I'm trying to make here is that misotheism, I feel like, should be more mainstream. Because I feel like a lot of times people fail to question authority, even when they are kind of already subversive to authority, right? Because it's easy to just say, listen, like, you know, people believe in God because of this God gap in their brain, because they can't explain things that are, you know, otherworldly, and we haven't had the technology to, you know, understand it yet. So therefore, we should just conclude that they're just inserting God as an explanation. Sure, you can do that, and that's true, but it's like, what if he's real, right? That's where you need to ask yourself the question, what if he's real, right? And this is not counting on if he's real. This is not assuming that he's real. This is it's more than anything. It is an exercise, a mental exercise to kind of like, you know, understand that hierarchy needs to justify itself in order to exist. And as anarchists, we can conclude that like such a hierarchy, such as the God that is depicted in the Bible, is not justified, like, at all. I think even Christian anarchists could probably agree that that such a God that is depicted in the Bible it's more written to be told in the context of lessons, what not to do, things like that, how not to handle certain situations. That's kind of the point, though, is that God is not really infallible. And I think even like very well understood Christians who have read their own Bible will understand that. This is why I don't have like a full on fucking like, you know, campaign against Christianity as a whole. I'm not trying to destroy Christianity. This is why I'm still, you know, in favor of abolishing the church. But again, the church doesn't necessarily need to be some, you know, stained glass window building that harbors pedophiles. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need that. We don't need a structure like that. Religious gathering can still happen, and it should happen, because religious gatherings is how you flourish cultures, especially in various parts of the world where you know, spirituality is literally bedrock from the different cultures that they spring from. Not to mention that, you know, Christianity, as well as other religions, that none of them are a monolith. And that's why, like I say, my misotheism is against God himself, and, you know, and not against Christians, not against individual believers. And it's also against the very systemic hierarchy that oppresses other people that this God represents. And there's one last thing I want to say before we go, and that is, so if I die one day, and I go to heaven, and I'm at the pearly gates or whatever, and I see God, Yahweh, whatever, right? What's my response gonna be? It would get me fucking TOS'd off of this fucking website if I said what I would do to God. But I know that it would be ugly. I would rather focus on my life right now. Focus on doing good things for myself right now in life. And not have to worry about some fucking God that dictates my fucking life. I think the best part about misotheism, truthfully, and this is something that even I should start adapting, is if this God is so fucking like malevolent in every single fucking way possible, this God shouldn't have this kind of power over me. That is just something I'm criticizing myself over. This God who is so evil literally fucking wins every time I curse him out. it's like, and again, you know, my form of misotheism, it differs from other people's, you know. I may have my own form of misotheism where I have a specific hatred of God in the Bible, but other people may have different reasons for hating God. You know, like I said, there's no doctrine here. There never was a doctrine. That's the point. But I think that's all I gotta say. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you hanging out. And peace.